Hi there, I'm James Olney with Oak Cliff Pottery, and we're out here in Toole, Texas, just outside of Dallas. I'm going to show you this big kiln here. It's a train kiln, or coffin kiln as some people call it. Looks good. So this firing process takes me and a couple other people. It takes about 2 days to load it. The first day, get out here about 7 or 8 in the morning, fire all day long, and then by that evening it's gotten up to about 1,500 degrees. Fire all night long. And by the next morning, it's gotten closer to about 23, 24 degrees. Finish the firing off around noon or 1 the next day. So a good two days of firing is what it takes to fire this kiln. It takes about a week for it to cool down. It gives some really beautiful effects. I don't glaze a lot of my pots. This one is glazed with a real thin red chino, but not a whole lot of. All of the effects are because of the firing process itself. You can see the ash strips here. That was because this was fired upside down. And there was another pot fired on top of this one here, so you can see the back of this one. It's fired on top like that. So you kind of imagine those were two kind of in the same area. That's how those are two fires. So in the front, you want to make sure to put pieces that are not going to warp too much, pieces that are going to be really stable, and they can take a lot of heat. So I put a lot of porcelain up front, and I also mix a lot of malite and sand with the clay, and that kind of opens up the clay body itself. As you can see on the bottom, you can kind of see the malite, the specks in there. But it keeps the pot from warping, and also keeps it from bloating and all sorts of things. You can see here, this just got really plastered with wood ash. You can tell all these crystallines here, lots of glaze down here at the bottom, all the way around. So that's because it was right up front in the kiln, and it just got really saturated with that wood ash. Before I finish, I put a few pots here, what's called the triangle of death. In this area, I will put pots that want to get a lot of ash. So this guy here was actually in the front. So I turned this guy upside down like this. It was on a big fat wad of clay, and then I turned this upside down, and I was able to put it fired just kind of like that, right up front of the kiln. So you can see that this is where the ash strip made its way here. And the second to the last area that I fired is kind of in between the two shelves. And as the flame comes through, it creates this kind of really turbulent flame, and it goes right in between the kiln shelves. So I have to put things in between. We'll get a lot of wood ash and a lot of heat. So this guy here, if you can see, got lots of drips, a big pearl here, pearl there. You can see the flashing on the bottom. So this is a real beauty. This was fired on its side like this. As you can see, 1, 2, 3 wads. So I fired this on its side, probably facing this direction in the front, because you can see all that wood ash there faced this right in between. So lots of wood ash came and found itself on top of here and melted down the side. People often ask me, why do I do wood-fired pottery? You know, it's time-consuming, and it can be kind of expensive. It requires a lot of extra equipment and space. I like to think of the reason I do wood-fired pottery is because it connects me to a tradition of something greater. It tells a story, and I think people who are attracted to that kind of pot like that kind of story. They like to see that sort of process. You know, turn the pot over in your hand, look at the bottom of it, and see those wad marks. Usually wood-fired pots have a little bit more of texture, probably, to them. They're not always smooth. Some of the wood ash is a little bit rougher. Sometimes the kiln is quite aggressive on the pot, and might warp it just a little bit. And I think when person, the user kind of holds that. They're kind of inspired by it. I think it reminds them of life, and it reminds them of the natural world. And I think it's a really positive thing. It's wood fire pottery is unlike any other kind of pottery.